My name is Adrian. I will help you with moderating the Q&A session.
Nice to meet you, Adrian.
Nice to meet you as well. As with the previous sessions, I'm encouraging everyone that's attending to use the chat and questions. But until people are starting to ask questions, I wanted to ask you something. When you pitch your idea to your product to governments, what's your unique selling proposition? What's the biggest advantage you would get out of using your product?
It sounds funny, Adrian, especially in 2020 with how much exciting technology is hitting the scene, that the two core value propositions are probably that it's 100% cloud-based and it's all integrated. I'm selling in a very legacy market, and part of the reason it's legacy isn't just that the buyers are slow, it's that the range of software that they need is massive. So it literally takes millions, if not tens and tens of millions of dollars to build this much software. So what happens is the big players in the industry mostly just buy companies, family-owned mom and pop companies. They rebrand them, but they don't integrate them, and they're single tenant or on-premise software. So we're coming to market saying, yeah, we've got all the features you need, your general ledger, your accounts payable, accounts receivable, bank reconciliation, cash receipting, utility billing. I could go on, and it's all cloud and it's all integrated. Now we have a lot of other little amazing features, collaborative capabilities as you build a government budget, all this financial transparency software. We're the leader in that category. Management reporting, performance dashboards, surveys for your community. You can run online forums, all these cool bells and whistles. But I actually think the two main value props are kind of, old hat at this point for a lot of the folks at Texylvania, but new hat for government executives and administrators.
Yeah, that's indeed very interesting. We have a question, and you're being asked, how did you enter the market? Because this is not necessarily an obvious market to address. What was your strategy?
We're batshit crazy, as you might say. Look, as we sometimes have said, that when things are working like here and they should be working here, this is white space to build a company. And as we were looking at governments 10 years ago, we saw all these manual processes, everything mired in Excel, governments building their budgets in Access with bubble gum and duct tape. And we said, there has to be a better way. And we didn't have it all figured out. We didn't have, all the marketing segments and the positioning and the complete product roadmap, but we had a really strong feeling and set of anecdotal data that there was a massive need here. We're also very mission driven. We wanted to build a company that we could be super proud of and, that could grow for 20 or 40 years, as opposed to a flash in the pan kind of, with no disrespect, but just, there's a lot of ad tech or social networks or, other things that are attracting entrepreneurs. And we were interested in really hard problems that we felt like had a big impact in an important way on a big sector of society. And there's not too many big sectors bigger than government.
True. Bogdan is asking you, what's the adoption trend that you're seeing with governments that you're engaging with? And if there's anything specific to Romania that you can share.
Sure. So we primarily operate in the US. We're not focused on Europe. It's actually, it's a different market, a different sales motion. It's extremely expensive to go into other countries. And when we're seeing this much opportunity kind of in North America, if you will, we just want to spend each marginal dollar where we're going to get the most return right now. We are seeing a little adoption in Australia and are moderately excited about that business prospect, and are getting some interest in Canada as well. So those are probably the two countries that, would be the most natural to move to from the United States. In the United States, across, call it 3 major product suites: budgeting and planning, financials, and permitting, licensing, and code. The budgeting is slowing down just a little bit due to COVID. That's our biggest business line, however. The financials is starting it's the anchor tenant of the OpenGov ERP suite. It's a ton of software. It's really exciting and impactful. That's the core operating system of a city or county. But we're starting from a small base. So very excited about that progress, but it's a small base. And then our permitting, licensing, and code enforcement. This is if you renovate your house or you want to open a restaurant, you need a license or a permit. You want to outdoor dining or marriage or, dog walking, whatever. All those have to be paid for. And a lot of that's going on in person. The permits are right now in PDFs and downloaded and submitted like in person. It's crazy. We put all of that into the cloud, and that suite of ours is taking off. It's flying off the shelves. So a major COVID boost as governments realize, wow, it's 2020. We've got to get online. We've got to get payments online. And so that's a quick across the board adoption breakdown.
Yes. Andre is asking, how come there's so much inertia in adopting a government solution? Like, where's the problem? Employees, incompetence, political motivation?
I think there's a few. You're welcome, Bogdan. Absolutely. There's a few issues, Andre. One is what I described around the purchasing cycles. It's just really hard to get it purchased. So we talk with government executives all the time who are just as pissed as you might be, or even as we might be about getting something adopted, but they have to jump through a bunch of red tape and they have to get their board aligned. Imagine if you were running a company, each time you want to buy a piece of software, you had to get your board to approve. It slows it down. So that's one point. A second point, you say, are they incompetent? There's a lot of competent, smart, hardworking people we talk to. There are incompetent people, no question, but you find that in the private sector as well. I would say there's a little bit of human, capacity building that would really help, especially among smaller governments where you've got one or two people doing like 13 jobs because it's a town this big. But I'd say that's a second issue, but not the biggest. A third issue is that the amount of software required for them to do their job is so big that they typically just have to go to the incumbent that's 30 years old. And it's a real issue in all vertical SaaS. You've got to get to feature completeness before you can really nail your adoption. And to get to feature completion might take you years and millions of dollars. So that's one of the exciting things. It's a winner take all kind of dynamic, but it's also very challenging for a new entrant to the market. It'd be like if you needed a Mack truck for your business and somebody came and said, I'm building a brand new truck. It's really good. I've got almost all the features and they're 10x better, but I haven't yet put the front tires on the truck. You'd be like, I can't buy it. I'm sorry. I really want to, but it's not done. So it's a lot of that.
Bogdan is asking another question, and it's focused on your opinion on open source software, possibilities of having the software open source to governments.
So yeah, we are called OpenGov. Our product roadmap, if you will, over the last 8 years, first we dominated financial transparency, showing off all your financial data online, and then management reporting and operational reporting, performance dashboards, open data, and then budgeting and planning, and now financial management, permitting, so a whole ERP cloud. We're super proud of our posture towards openness and enabling inside-outside transparency from your core systems. And I'd argue, at least in the US, we have still the leading transparency reporting and open data solutions that are adopted by many hundreds of governments. Our open data, for instance, is based on the CCAN open source standard, and that's the premier standard in Europe as well as North America. Most of our software is proprietary because it just wouldn't exist otherwise, but happy to use open source where possible. But we are focused on building out our ERP, which is one, core back office system. We just want to make sure to weave in transparency everywhere we can.
And there's another question. Do you guys use RPA tech like UiPath to interface with legacy systems?
No, we don't. We've talked about it, exploring it. Okay. We have, kind of standard and heavy integrations with lots of back office systems using, Snap Logic pipelines and pipelines that we're building, APIs and other things, but have not used RPA yet.
In your explanation, you were using a lot of terms related to building a SaaS and how this might be somehow different than a usual SaaS. And I wanted to ask you, are you tracking any SaaS-specific metrics that are unusual to kind of like the rest of general SaaS products?
Probably not that are unusual, but as a recap, in case it's useful for any entrepreneurs or investors, I mean, clearly we want our ARR, our annual recurring revenue, going up and to the right. We're also moving into a world where we want to track revenue, which is, as you know, different than ARR, because we're building a pretty significant professional services business. Slightly counterintuitive that I've, if not discovered, learned the hard way, is professional services are really important to successful SaaS software, particularly at the complicated enterprise level. The more professional services you have and you sell, the more likely you are to sell software. And there's a natural tendency, at least among young entrepreneurs like I am or was, to think they compete with each other. It'll also help you drive for cash flow positive, as we're doing. But sales efficiency, cash burn, all the different growth rates, your magic number, your R&D expenses as a percent of total expenses and revenue. These are things that we're tracking on our dashboards, among many others.
All right. Thanks, Zac, for the answers. Thanks for joining the Q&A session, and thanks for being at Techsylvania. And good luck with opening access and opening governments to technology as much as possible.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Adrian.
Thanks, everyone, for attending. Bye.
Bye.